was just fucking miserable. You know, I'm married, I've got 2 kids, I'm living in this dream house that we built for retirement. Like, if you wanted to look from the outside, you could see somebody living the American dream. And for me, it was the American nightmare.
Retired military officer Benjamin Forrest.
The author of Trip of a Lifetime, the psychedelic guide to healing, loving, and living.
We are taught to be ashamed of our feelings and our emotions. And the only emotion men seemed to be permitted to have was anger.
Yep.
You know, so it's like we're allowed to exist in just a few gears. Angry, neutral, horny. And what a limited human being there. I think masculinity in our society is in a very insecure place. Women have made so much progress over the last 100 years, and I'm very happy for that, but I think it's knocked men off balance. A lot of the messaging around masculinity is really negative. Pornography is very damaging to young men. Mm-hmm. If you can get your sexual satisfaction on your screen, where's your motivation to actually go learn how to talk to Sally across the hall? And then your view of sex is getting extremely warped. She handed me a cup of tea, psilocybin tea, and I drank it, and my life was never the same again. And when I came out of it, it was a joy and a passion and a connection and a love like I never thought possible. It's almost miraculous to me that in a single night, a depression could disappear.
So Ben, 5 years ago was the height of your depression.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm definitely curious to kick us off, if you could go back 5 years to that day, that night, that event, and look at Lieutenant Colonel Forrest in the eyes, what would you tell him?
You know, the funny thing is, I don't know that I would tell him anything.
Nothing?
No, because he was on the right track.
Okay.
He was on the right track.
How did he end up where he was?
So, I was cruising along very well in my military career. I spent 25 years. I started enlisted. 3 years later, I am an officer, and I'm having this stellar career. And I just graduated Air War College. And typically, like 99+% of the time, you go to War College, you go on to be a colonel. And instead of going on to become a colonel, I had what I can only describe as a mental breakdown on active duty. And it was obvious to both to me and to my leadership that I had no business being a colonel.
Yeah. What happened, can I ask?
Yeah, so my father died of cancer. And I had no idea how to deal with the grief. And I just stopped caring.
How old were you?
I was, I think 44 at the time. And it was so strange. Like, I was such a type A overachiever. Like, I wanted to go on, to be the man, right? To be the group commander. And I just stopped caring. And I didn't know how to deal with the grief, so I dealt with my trauma the way a lot of military guys do. I was drinking a lot. And while I was overseas leading a contingent at in a foreign nation in Europe, I had an utter collapse. I was at an event and I started drinking and drinking and drinking, and by the end of it, I was just a sobbing mess. Alcohol can bring out what's hidden inside, and I just collapsed. And when I got home, the folks who were traveling with me went to my leadership and said, "This guy is a mess. This guy is a mess." And I was a former commander, and I had spent time, giving Article 15s and letter of reprimands and sending people to court martials. Like, I was used to being on that side of things. And there I was, an Air War College graduate, a lieutenant colonel, and I got a letter of reprimand for conduct unbecoming of an officer. And it was just this utter humiliation. They removed me from my position. They put me in a alcohol treatment program. The humiliation that I felt, it was so public. And then the day the colonel list came out on it and I wasn't on it, it was like just another humiliation. And I was such a prideful, maybe even arrogant person sometimes, and here I was in utter humiliation. And at that point, all I could do was just beg them, please just let me retire. I owed them several years more of a service commitment, but I said, you have to let me retire. It's not going to be good for me or for you if I stay in. And so they did let me get out. And so I got out and tried to rebuild my life. I took a job, and I quit after a month and a half.
What was the job?
The job was a VA benefits advisor. And, I was good at it, and I liked helping people. But I don't know, I just had no motivation. Yeah. Then I got another job, and it was paying me so much, and it was these great benefits. And I quit after 1 month. And finally, I took a third job working in foreign military sales, top secret security clearance. And I stuck with that one for 6 months. And I was just fucking miserable. I'm married, I've got 2 kids, I'm living in this dream house that we built for retirement. Like, if you wanted to look from the outside, you could see somebody living the American dream. And for me, it was the American nightmare. Like, I had checked every box I'm supposed to check to be a man, and I'm fucking miserable. And then...
Wild that you hear that story all the time.
Yeah.
Like, very common situation. Why do you think that is?
Because it wasn't fulfilling.
Yeah.
It wasn't in alignment with who I was. It wasn't in alignment with my soul. There's a quote from Jim Carrey, depression is your body saying, I don't want to play this fucking character anymore. And that's what it felt like I was playing this role. I looked a certain way, I talked a certain way, I was doing all the things I was supposed to do, but it was completely out of alignment with my soul. And, although I had friends, I felt like completely lonely. I felt disconnected from myself, disconnected from my wife, disconnected from my friends, from spirituality. What am I living for? What am I living for? And after a fight with my wife, I must have been a very miserable person to be married to, by the way. She kicked me out, and I spent the night at a friend's house. And this was a really interesting story, actually. This was a turning point. I've never told this story before. I came into work after that fight, and there was a guy there, a retired Marine, and he asked me out to lunch. I didn't say anything to him. Maybe he just read something on me, or he smelled it. And without asking me a question, he told me this story about getting out of the military, and he was a mess. He was kind of like me, actually. And he told the story of going into an ER and saying I needed help. And he said, it was the best thing I ever did for me. And that phrase really struck me, the best thing I ever did for me. Because as a family man, as an officer, I was used to being there for everybody else, looking after my troop, looking after my kids, looking after my wife. But who was looking after me? Oh shit, I have to look after me. And the day after he told me that story, I did what he did.
Yeah.
I walked into the ER and very vulnerably said, I want to die. And this was in the middle of COVID, so I had a private room, and they put me in the room, and they took away my phone and all my toiletries and everything, and oh my God, I'm a prisoner. I volunteered to be a prisoner. And because I was on suicide watch that night, every 15 minutes they would open this vault door to my room, and they would shine a flashlight in my eyes to make sure I was still alive. And so I'm not sleeping at all because, I'm getting interrupted every 15 minutes with a light in my eyes. And so I have this whole night alone in bed, humiliated and imprisoned. And I kept thinking to myself, I'm doing life wrong, I'm doing life wrong, I'm doing life wrong. I think I'm so fucking smart. And here I am in a goddamn psych ward wanting to die. And there was this little click of, well, if I'm doing life wrong, what would it look like to do life right? And I didn't have an answer, but that was an interesting question. And the third day, the docs interviewed me and asked me if I was going to kill myself. And I said, honestly, I have 2 kids, and I don't think I could ever do that to them. I think that's the barrier for me.
Yeah.
So they gave me some pills and a referral to a therapist. I've done all these things 100 times before. This doesn't help. And so that was this moment where I realized, well, I have to be my own savior. I have to be my own hero. I have to look after myself. And so driving home, I'm on the phone with my boss, and I say, I'm never coming in again. I'm done. And I told my wife, my health and happiness is more important than this marriage. Like, okay, this is my moment to be my own damn hero, to heal myself, to go after health and happiness the way I'd gone after everything else, to make this like a mission that I cannot fail in. And so for the few months after that, I just went down this rabbit hole of like, how do I heal myself? How do I heal myself? And in that journey, I watched this TED Talk by Dr. Rosalind Watts from Imperial College, Can Magic Mushrooms Unlock Depression? And she described these men suffering from depression. And in a lot of those cases, it was gone. It disappeared. And the way she talked about what was really interesting, she talked about SSRIs being like a Band-Aid, but that the magic mushrooms can get to root cause. And this caught my attention. But the way she described the men, it happened to be all men in her study, she talked about them being told things like boys don't cry, and that the pain inside being so great, they just didn't know how to deal with it. And somehow in this psychedelic experience, all that stuff could come out. And I don't know why, but I knew that this was my answer. And so I immediately found a group ceremony hosted by a psychologist here in the United States, the Sacred House of Eden, Dr. Stephanie Klein. And I called her, and she cleared me. And 2 weeks later, I am sitting on the floor in this group ceremony. We're all on these mats around a living room. And she handed me a cup of tea, psilocybin tea, and I drank it, and my life was never the same again. It was like a light switch just being turned on. And when I came out of it, it was a joy and a passion and a connection and a love like I never thought possible. Like, it's almost miraculous to me that in a single night, a depression could disappear. And that's my unique experience. I'm not suggesting that all we have to do is go take 5 grams and everybody's healed. No, but for me, like in my mission, in my surrender, in my just desperation, it unlocked something inside my heart. And I'll describe the experience for me. I maybe like a half hour or an hour in, who knows, I just started sobbing and sobbing.
How much did you drink?
5 grams of psilocybin tea.
Which is a lot.
Yeah, 5 grams is the heroic dose.
Yeah, that's a macro dose.
Terence McKenna was kind of this voice in the wilderness after, the 60s and 50s research and before the 21st century Renaissance. He was this voice there that was really kind of carrying the torch of what psychedelics can be. And he had this really simple prescription. Take 5 grams, lie down, close your eyes, and surrender to whatever comes. And that was the foundation of how this ceremony went. So,
had you ever had any psychedelic experiences before that?
Not really. I had back in my teenage years, I'd done LSD a few times. It was just for fun.
Yeah.
Not for therapy.
Not as a tool.
Yeah, exactly. So there was a little bit of familiarity with that space, but that was decades ago. For 25 years, I wouldn't even go near a joint. Like, the consequences are so severe. So it was a very sudden and explosive event.
Yeah. All right. So take us in there. It's half hour in.
So half hour in, I am sobbing. I am beating my chest so hard there was bruises on my chest for like a week. And I don't know why I was doing that. Like, in my surrender, I just let the body do whatever it's going to do. And it was kind of a beautiful metaphor. It was like I was banging on my heart, begging it to open. Knock on the door and it will open. And it did. And when it opened, it was just this, absolute explosion of emotion. I describe in the book this one moment, maybe an hour or two in, where I'm laying on the floor on my back, and there was this woman who was holding my hand as I'm going through such a difficult time, and my legs are kind of up, and I said, "Oh, I've been on the other end of this. It feels like I'm giving birth to pain." And that's what it was. Like, all the pain that I had suppressed and trapped inside, all just poured out. And I went so deep into feeling my own pain. I went deep into feeling the pain of my father and my mother and their childhood, and back to my grandparents, like through the ancestors, and honestly back to the dawn of man. Like, oh my God, we're all just these flawed, wounded people raising flawed, wounded children and passing on this pain generation after generation all the way back to the dawn of man. Like, none of us have been doing this right because we're all so damn wounded. And after about 2 hours of this just intense emotional release, I got on the other side, and it was bliss. It was joy. It was like, I describe it as like purgatory. So in the Catholic concept of purgatory, you have to go through this purification process until you can get into heaven. And that is what it felt like. I had to go through this release, this purification, and on the other side was heaven, was bliss. And so I describe the first half of it as being this sobbing and wailing and screaming. And then the second half, I am just in rapture. I'm in joy. I was laughing so hard that they very politely at some point said, "Hey, Ben, we're going to take you to another room because you're being a little loud. I'm disrupting the people around me in my joy as they're going through their journey." So they take me into another room, and I am just ecstatic. And coming out of it, as I'm sobering up, it was a euphoria and a bliss that I just can't even describe. And I knew, like, oh, this depression is gone and it's never coming back. It was like I learned how to navigate my heart. I learned how to release feelings. And if I've learned how to do that, then I can keep on doing that, even in my sober state.
Mm-hmm. I mean, did it cross your mind at that point, like, maybe I'm just really high right now?
It didn't, because at that point, then, the medicine was gone, and the next day was bliss. And I mean, why didn't I think, oh, this is just a temporary thing? To me, it was like in The Wizard of Oz, when you see behind the curtain and there's a man pulling the levers there, you can't go back to seeing things the same way.
Yeah. Can we kind of play in this for a minute? Because I really love at least the visual I have when you say, like, how did you just frame it? Like, you could see how your heart was wired or something?
Yeah.
I am almost imagine, like, you're looking down at, like a maze, three-dimensionally, and all of a sudden you can get inside it. At some point for most of your life, you're looking at it from the outside, and it's like, I don't really know how to navigate this. But then once you get inside, you could start poking around and navigating it. Really fascinating metaphor of, like, the inner work, or looking inward, right? Or, like, understanding who you are. Is that what that was like?
Yeah, maze is really close. The metaphor I had was the puzzle.
Okay.
Like, even before the ceremony began, like in the days leading up to it, it was this sense of, I can solve the puzzle of me. Because I was trying to solve this puzzle of what's wrong with me, but I didn't have all the pieces. And somehow I knew the missing pieces to the puzzle were buried back there in my subconscious. And that metaphor felt really true after the experience. I was able to go back there and find the missing pieces to the puzzle of me, to my, pain and suffering, and I found them. And I was able to complete the puzzle, and it suddenly made sense. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And after that weekend, I deliberately kept away from psychedelics for months, because it was like this personal science experiment of, like, how long will this last? And so weeks went by, and
like each morning after, next day, 2 days, 3 days, like, was it fading a bit? I mean,
no. It was
in the post?
It was so blissful, and it was so intense. And I quickly found a coach and a therapist to help solve, like, what the fuck happened to me. I'd never in my life seen somebody transform this dramatically, this quickly. It was unlike anything I could relate to. Nobody I knew had really been through like this sort of thing. And I was waking up just like bright-eyed and full of love. And, it was so funny because, 10 years prior to that, I'd been walking the halls of the Pentagon, and now I'm like waking up and taking off my feet and going and walking on the grass. Like I went from, this military Ben, I call him, to this, I don't know what even to call
free
what
spirit,
I was afterwards. This free spirit, this sloppy mystic, or whatever the hell I was. But it was just this absolute bliss. And it was so like energetic. And it was so energetic that like other people could feel it. I had been such a lonely person before, but suddenly I could connect on this really deep, vulnerable, fearless level with other people.
Yeah.
And it went on like that for weeks and for months. And finally, I think after 4 months, I'm like, okay, I do want to see how this experiment goes, but I'm way too curious. Like I just found the, Rosetta Stone to my mind. I gotta keep exploring. So eventually I did go back to psilocybin and had another heroic dose. And at that point, I'm like, oh, this is the most fascinating thing in the universe. Like literally the human mind is the most complicated thing we know of in the universe. And here are these molecules that can kind of unlock it. So I knew instantly, like, this is the rest of my life. This is what I'm going to devote the rest of my life to. And in the years since, I have traveled around various countries and tried probably a dozen different medicines driven by passion and curiosity and out of this just deep, deep desire to heal and to be the best version of myself. And it has continued to be the most fascinating journey I've ever been on. It has been the trip of a lifetime, right?
So, first of all, I'm very proud of you and excited for you. Like, to have found something that was that profound in life is very rare, but also like pretty admirable and cool.
Yeah.
I'd love to bring up something I actually learned, a wild study that was done. I learned, I was doing research for this episode, but first I want to share a bit of a backstory and then play around with this question. See how far that takes us, then we'll come to the study.
Sure.
So I had my first psychedelic experience when I was a sophomore in college. I think I was like 19, and I went to University of Colorado in Boulder. There's a lot of psychedelic stuff going on in Boulder. And pretty heroic dose of LSD at Red Rocks at a Lotus concert. It was an awesome experience. I mean, I was not a human being for a night. That lasted a while. That one lasted probably like 18 hours because LSD lasts a long time.
Yeah.
And I remember in the days following, I mean, I was also 19 years old, so like, fuck did I know about life and the world. But people would ask me, like, how was it? Like, tell me about your experience. And I remember so vividly being like, oh, it was sort of like, but it was kind of, okay, well, it was, like, I couldn't put words in the English language to what I had went through. But in my brain and in my body, it felt so visceral, and I could really like go back and almost mentally to what I experienced, what I felt, what I saw, what I did, who I felt I was, but I couldn't put any words to it. And so then I started talking to my buddies about it, who I had the trip with, and I was like, what was your experience like? And they were in the same, having the same reaction. We couldn't put words to it, but we could just kind of sense like, but I know exactly what you're talking about right now.
Yeah.
And then as I dabbled in psychedelics more throughout my late teens, early 20s, I still could never put words to it. But it became more and more familiar, obviously, each time. I was like, oh, yeah, we're here again. I remember how my fingers feel and like how my back of my head feels and like my teeth and all that and why I think these thoughts and where things are confusing and where they're not. But I still could never put words to it very well. The rest of my 20s, I didn't really dabble in psychedelics at all. And then I did about a 3-month microdose sprint, if you will, a little over a year ago, just about a year ago. No, I'm sorry, 2 years ago. And that was on psilocybin. And through that experience, I was able to now start to put words to it a little bit. And then I paused. And I like to microdose pretty regularly now. I live in Venice, California. Like, instead of going out and drinking, it's like, have 200, 300, 400 milligrams for a night, and that's your night.
As one does.
So what I'd really love to get your take on and understand is, like, why can't we put words to what's happening in the psychedelic experience, but yet we can really understand it intuitively? And could you put words to it? Because you're way more the expert than I ever was or am, could be probably.
I think the reason that perhaps it's so hard to describe in words is because our language was constructed for the ordinary world.
This three-dimensional simulation that we're used to.
Yeah, and so language wasn't constructed to describe the special world. Mm-hmm. And that's why it can be so difficult. When I had my first psychedelic retreat, the one that changed my life, on the second night they gave us a different medicine. And during the course of that night, they invited us to go paint. And I went out to the foyer, and there was maybe a half dozen empty canvases and some paint. And we were invited to paint. And it was almost like it was easier to paint the experience than to describe it.
Totally.
So I painted, it's still hanging in my living room, this chaotic, just whirlwind of paint, mostly blue. And then the middle was this silhouette of a human face, my face. And everything was just covered and messy, except for this little spot right here where the brain is, which I left completely blank. Because that's how it felt in that moment, to have a truly quiet mind. To have a mind that is peaceful amidst all the chaos of the world. And that painting, beyond words, probably describes better what I was experiencing in that moment than any words could do. And I also, I hesitate to describe my experience too much because I don't want to impress somebody else with my experience, or to suggest that my experience will be similar to another person's. Because the more I have traveled in the psychedelic space, the more I have realized how uniquely our brains experience psychedelics. And a good way to describe this is my experience with ayahuasca. I was actually at an ayahuasca retreat over the weekend. And as we're going around, a lot of people are describing these really intense visuals that they're getting, a leopard that's, representing the spirit of Aya, or maybe a look into one's childhood home and everything, and all these elaborate visions. And as I sit and listen to these, all I can think is, I have no idea what you're talking about. Because on most of these psychedelics, I do not get visuals. There's a few exceptions to that, but overall, I do not get visuals. And I think it just speaks to how differently wired our brains are. So for one person, it might be an intensely visual experience. For me, it is intensely physical. That is what surprised me about psychedelics the most, is I kind of went in there with this expectation that it's going to look like the cover of a Grateful Dead album, or like some of the psychedelic art that you see. And maybe it is that way for most people, but that's not my experience. From my experience, it is the feeling of energies in the bodies. It's a lot of movement, a lot of physical release. So I think our experiences are so radically different that maybe it's not even helpful to try to describe them. I can share the revelations, I can share the feelings, but the actual experience, even at my best wordsmanship, I don't know that it's helpful. Yeah.
Even now, it's hard to put words to these things.
It is. I'll share, one experience that I feel like I can describe pretty well. So there is a molecule called 5-MeO-DMT. It's extracted from the Colorado desert toad's venom. And I don't know who did this, but somebody at some point smoked this dried venom. And it's a very brief experience, maybe 10 minutes, maybe a little longer. And it is probably, of all the psychedelics, the most direct path to what is often called an ego death. I recently heard the term ego nap, which I prefer, because I think it's less threatening, and also it's actually more accurate, right? Because your ego really is just taking a nap. If it was dead, it wouldn't come back, and it does come back. So in this ego nap, any sense of Ben just disappeared. There was no more me, and yet I was still conscious. And in this place of being aware but not there, it was endless white light and endless bliss, and everything was perfect. And when I came out of it in this euphoric state, I was like, oh, that's what the Buddha was talking about. And so in those, few words I've used in the last 30 seconds, like, okay, that is a fairly accurate description of what the 5-MeO experience was like that time. It's been different other times. And that experience does sound very similar to what other people have experienced on 5-MeO. It does seem like there is a breakthrough where the identity of self disappears and there is endless white light. And it does sound a little bit like what the Buddha was talking about. And it does sound a little bit like what I think death might be.
Wasn't DMT the chemical that is released when you're born and when you die in your brain?
DMT exists in 3 parts of the body in the pineal gland. But when we talk about DMT, we have to be a little bit careful because DMT is what exists in ayahuasca. It's what exists in plants and in our bodies. And then 5-MeO DMT is a completely different molecule than DMT that is found both, in the plants and in, the ayahuasca experience. The DMT is thought to be what gets released when we die. People have speculated that perhaps that's what is released when we're dreaming. We actually don't know why it's in the human body. It's a little bit of a mystery. It's in the human body, it's in, plants, it's in nature. And why? We actually don't know. Yeah.
I've recently taken a much deeper respect in all that we don't know.
Yeah.
For example, why are we here? Like creationism.
Yeah.
I'd stay up all night with my friends contemplating these things, and then finally now I'm just sort of like, there's a reason we don't know, and that's okay.
Yeah, I'm not that curious about that question. I call myself a spiritual minimalist. I have as few spiritual beliefs as possible. But if I had to describe the cosmology that Benjamin believes in, we come from the divine, we have a human experience, and then we return from the divine. And that's actually all I really need to believe.
Sure.
I don't think that it's even necessarily helpful to try to go beyond that.
It's almost like a friend referred to it as mental masturbation.
Yeah.
It's just like this release for the sake of thinking about it.
Yeah, and it's almost like the more we think about it and the more we describe it, the further away from it we get. There's that line in the Tao that can be described is not the Tao. And I kind of feel like the God that can be described is not God. So the more words I put on it, the further away from it I get. And, we can see in the course of religions, there's been thousands and tens and thousands of pages trying to describe God. And I don't really have much interest in that. I don't think that's actually even necessarily why we're here.
Sure.
So I love Joseph Campbell in the Power of Myth interviews in the late 80s. He was asked about the meaning of life, and his response was something along these lines. People all think that we're looking for the meaning of life, but I don't think that's what we're really seeking. I think what we're really seeking is the experience of being alive, an experience that resonates with our innermost being so that we actually feel the rapture of being alive. And that experience of being alive is way more interesting to me than some elaborate cosmology. And I think actually the elaborate cosmology is dangerous.
I think when you, upon reaching that destination, like we find out, right? Or you get pretty damn close. It's like, then what?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. With the endless pursuit, it keeps us pushing. It keeps us seeking for meaning. It keeps us asking better questions and stepping outside our comfort zones and doing all the wonderful things life has to offer. It's like, I think the meaning is to continuously try to seek it out.
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah. I don't know. We're getting pretty deep into that.
If I had to go a little bit further on this idea of have we come from the divine, we have a human experience, we return from the divine, I think as close as humanity has come up with an idea of what I'm talking about is probably from India and this idea of Advaita Nandata, which is also, I mispronounced that, it doesn't matter, which is also called non-duality. And non-duality, I think, is a fancy word of saying not two, which is a fancy way of saying oneness. And so if this is true, then we are all divine. And if we are all divine, what's the implication of how we ought to behave? Well, I suppose we should all treat each other as if we're divine and be more loving to each other as if we're divine. Okay, I can take that implication.
Totally.
But I don't want to make it too complicated.
Yeah.
We love to complicate things as humans.
Sure.
I think it might actually be really simple. I think it's actually all really simple, and it's only our minds that make it so damn complicated.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Want to talk about men for a little bit?
Sure. One last thing, though, because
Yeah.
I do feel like this may be important around what I'm talking about. So when I first went to psychedelics, I identified as an atheist.
Okay.
Maybe even a little bit of a bitter atheist. And when I came out of the experience, I definitely believe in the divine. I don't typically use the word God because I feel like that has a lot of baggage,
Yeah.
but I definitely believe in the divine. And it's not even belief, really, because it was an experience of the divine. I'm not taking anybody's word for it. I'm not trying to push it on anybody else. I think when we try to push spiritual and religious beliefs on other people, I think it comes oftentimes from a place of insecurity. I need to convince you to believe what I believe. But my experience was so, I don't know, direct and pure. Like, that's fine.
What was the experience?
When I got home, I said this to my wife. I said, either I saw God or this mind is one of the most amazing things in the universe, because I didn't do that. It's hard to describe. We're getting back to hard to describe, but the poetry that I used was, it was as if God reached into my heart, flipped a switch, and brought me to life. Like, it was like this touch from the divine. It was like, Jesus touching the leper for a moment and healing him. That's what it felt like.
Could you describe what God or the divine was in this sense? I'm going to assume it wasn't an old man with a long white beard and white cloak.
No. It was somewhere between a feeling and a burst of energy, perhaps. Yeah. And when I say I see God, the word see isn't quite right, actually.
Okay.
It was more, experience. It was more, yeah. I can't go any further than that.
Cool. So check this out. In 2005, there was a study that was published. I'm going to pull it up and we'll share it in the show notes and all that.
Sure.
But it found that men who had used psychedelics reported significantly lower distress from internalized mental health stigma than women. So in other words, I wrote it down, psychedelic use was associated with men feeling less ashamed about having psychological struggles. And I thought about that a bit, and I was like, I think logically that makes a bit of sense. It's like, we're so locked up and afraid, or insert any word here, to like share our emotional, psychological struggles. But now this tool, for lack of a better word, allows us to get there. Whereas women aren't as ashamed of it ahead of time. And I was like, okay, well, logically that actually makes a lot of sense. But there was an actual study that was done around this. That's pretty fascinating. What do you know about this?
So that's a really interesting word, shame. So I had a ceremony over this weekend. We did ayahuasca at night, and we did San Pedro during the day. And as I was doing the 2-minute share during our integration circle, I said, if I had to put a bumper sticker on my experience, it would be this: I am shameless. I am shameless. I am shameless about my feelings. I am shameless about my strengths, about my weaknesses, about my sexuality. I am shameless about all of it. And it feels like this 5-year journey I've been on that's included a lot of plant medicine, a lot of therapy, a lot of, other things. It has been a process of de-shamification. Because as men, as you alluded to, we are taught to be ashamed of our feelings and our emotions. I think boys and girls, men and women, I think our inner experience of feelings is probably pretty damn similar, except the woman has a lot more permission in our society to express and acknowledge those things, and we, men, are shamed out of it from a very, very young age. I'm of an age when boys don't cry was, something very commonly taught and told.
I was taught that and I'm 30.
Yeah. And, on the playground, showing, feelings or sadness. I mean, it's considered to be weakness. And, my dad was a very stoic man. And so I think I learned growing up on the playground and in my home is that emotions are for women. And the only emotion men seemed to be permitted to have was anger.
Yep.
So it's like we're allowed to exist in just a few gears: angry, neutral, horny. Like, I think those are like the three we're allowed to have.
Yep.
And what a limited human being there. And I hear in psychology talk about men getting in touch with their feminine side. I don't actually know that I like that language. The language I prefer to use is not getting in touch with your feminine side, but like being a full human being. Mm-hmm. Being a full human being. And these things like vulnerability and admitting hurt and all that other stuff, I think facing that shit's actually the most manly thing you can do.
100%.
Yeah.
So I started this show in January, and for the few months leading up to that, I was, recording some episodes, starting to dabble, doing a lot of research, talking to people, and I put myself through this little social experiment for about a month.
Yeah.
Where I was like, now that I really think I understand like masculine versus feminine, at least how we've been conditioned to really define those, and recognize that like the way it gets thrown around in everyday conjecture and lexicon is not actually accurate at all.
Yeah.
But I was like, all right, I'm going to start saying really traditionally feminist things with a very masculine tone of voice to my friends to see what happens. So for example, I run into a friend. He's like, what's up, dude? How you doing? I'm like, I'm good, man. Dap him up, little hug, as men do.
Yeah.
How am I doing? Pretty sad right now. How about you?
Yeah.
Just like own it. Like say, I'm sad. That the word I'm sad is like pretty feminine, quote unquote, as we would all assume. But to say it in like with some strength and some macho, and I'm wearing a camo hat when I do it.
Yeah.
And then just see that people's reaction.
Yeah.
And what I noticed overwhelmingly, almost every single time, without me having to ask anything or really say much as a follow-up, the guy I was talking to would reciprocate with how he was feeling, typically also not feeling great.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, really fascinating. There's like an enormous amount of strength and power and leadership and badassery, if you will, in just like owning the thing and then inviting another guy, letting him know like, it's okay, I got you, I'll lead you into this as well, and we can sit here together. It's all right to feel like shit. Let me help you out of that. Help me out of it too. And I was like, this is cool. This is interesting. And it felt so new and so bizarre and strange. But now, being 6 months past that experiment, being able to talk about it, I cannot encourage that enough of everybody. And that's just the beginning.
Yeah, I love that. Like, what if after my father died, I could go into work and, Major Snuffy asked me how I'm doing. Oh, dude, I am so fucking deep in my grief. I am fucking dying here. My heart is like bleeding. Instead of going in there and being like, yep, I'm fine. It's the nature of life. And, that thing about being cowardly or being like courageous, the man who is deep, deep in agony is like, I'm fine. That's cowardly. Yeah. That's cowardly. You're afraid to face yourself. But how courageous is it to go into these caves and face the dragon that's there?
Yeah, like stare at the darkness in the face.
Yeah.
Own your shit.
Yeah.
I've been using that line a lot lately. Just own your shit.
Yeah.
And take care of it. Yeah. And admit and know it's all right.
Yeah.
You're human.
Yeah.
Fuck, what else do you expect, right? Yeah. And ask for help.
Yeah. And, in the book, the very first chapter is about be the hero. Yeah. And I use, Joseph Campbell's hero's journey as kind of a model of walking through these experiences, because I think for men, if we start looking at this as like a heroic quest.
This is this book, or
the Trip of Lifetime, yeah.
Because we're going to get to your next book shortly.
Yeah, I mean, if we think about it as a heroic quest, that's a little bit different of a frame. And Joseph Campbell says, in the cave you fear to enter is the treasure that you seek. And so just admitting that we have some fear.
Let's repeat that.
Oh, sure.
The cave
you fear to enter is the treasure that you seek.
I want to power pause for everyone to think about that one for a second.
Yeah.
What came up for you when you first heard that?
So all of my psychedelic journeys, I think about that metaphor, like what's the cave that I'm afraid to go into right now?
Yeah.
And I'll use an ayahuasca experience from about 6 months ago as an example. Like at this point, I'm like years into the journey. I think I'm so freaking healed. And I went into that ceremony and I'm like, oh shit, there's a cave I've never been into. And there is some shame in there. And it was around shame that was coming up in romantic relationships. And so I'm like, okay, well, I've gone into a lot of caves. I can go into this one too. And you know what I found? I found insecurity in there. This insecurity that was bleeding out into my romantic relationships. So I'm going to go into that cave of insecurity. And in this metaphor of going into the cave, I think about a dragon guarding some treasure. And so I go into that cave, and rather than pulling out the sword and slaying the dragon, I go in there and I give that dragon a hug. Because that dragon came from a little boy who was shamed and who was told that he wasn't manly enough because he, wasn't particularly into sports, and he was, creative and sensitive and emotional. And, oh, I don't need to slay that dragon. I need to give him a hug. So I gave that dragon a hug, and I acknowledged him, and I loved him. And you know what? The dragon just left on his own accord. I didn't have to kill him. He just left. And once he left, I could see the treasure there. And you know what that treasure was? It was security. And so I walked out of that cave of insecurity, and I walked out with security. Because the minute I can stand in front of people and say, I felt insecure, okay, well, I'm fucking owning it. You can't tease me about that. I'm owning it right now. And with that comes security. And it's kind of like if there is a deep hurt there, say like the grief around my father's death, that I was afraid, like, no, that's too big. I can't deal with all that. But once I actually went in there and I felt that intense grief and loss, that dragon of grief walked out there, and I found a peace around my father's death. I found an acceptance around my father's death, and even a gratitude for it because it woke me up. And so all of these different caves, and there's so many of them, and I think there's a shame that probably permeates all of them too. And the more I can go face that shame, the more fucking shameless I can be as I move through this world. It's an entirely different way of being. Yeah.
So you're writing another book soon, or in the process of?
Yeah, it's actually only in my head right now, but
it's about modern masculinity.
This one is kind of a self-help guide of how to prepare for, navigate, and integrate a psychedelic journey. It's meant for a very general audience, but this next book I think is going to be geared very specifically towards men, and it's essentially what psychedelics can teach us about being a man. And the cover is kind of in my mind, so this cover has the psilocybin mushroom just as a general indicator of psychedelics. The next one is going to have the San Pedro cactus. Do you know much about San Pedro?
No.
Oh, so it is a cactus. It's all over Southern California, all over Northern California, and indigenous people have been using it for years in their ceremonies. So ayahuasca is known as the grandmother medicine, the feminine medicine. And typically when I do ayahuasca, we do ayahuasca at night, San Pedro during the day. And San Pedro is the grandfather medicine, the masculine medicine. And
what about those makes it masculine or feminine?
So ayahuasca, we typically are having individual journeys. We're not talking, so it's very internal. And it's very emotional. And it does have kind of a motherly, maternal quality to it. It sure does for me, because ayahuasca is always either scolding me or soothing me, just like a good mom, calling me out of my shit and spanking me, or, giving me a big hug and filling me with warmth. So it's a metaphor, but for me, it actually does work. In that idea of it being the grandmother medicine, the feminine medicine comes from, thousands of years of use, coming out of South America. And so I took San Pedro for the first time, and I was reflecting on these, traditions. Like, so this is the masculine medicine. This is the grandfather, huh? And it didn't really feel like it. It's very heart-opening. It's very connecting. It's very grounded. It can even be kind of like playful. Like, that's not really what I think of when I think of, traditional ideas of masculinity. But then something dawned on me. Well, they call it the grandfather medicine. And what's the difference with the grandfather? Well, the grandfather has already proven himself. The grandfather has already had his kids. He's already, made his fortune. He's already proven himself as a man. And in that place of security, it's a relaxed, secure masculinity. Mm-hmm. And I think this is very real, certainly real in my experience, because when I saw my father playing with my kids, he's retired. He's just, biding his time, enjoying life, and has nothing to prove because he's already done all that checklist of masculinity. And so I would look at him playing with my kids, and I would think, where the fuck was this guy when I was growing up? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Because he was in his grandfather energy, and he didn't have anything to prove.
I've never heard that before.
Yeah, and so I think, like, if there's a model of masculinity that this world needs right now, it is that grandfather energy. And that grandfather's able to be playful and silly and secure and non-defensive.
Yeah.
And if there's a moment when grandpa needs to, puff up his chest and be a protector, then he'll fucking do that.
Yeah, and there's no, you listen to grandpa.
Yeah, exactly. There can be a moment for that. And the idea of like, a man being provider, well, a grandfather, if, life has been in his favor, he can certainly be a provider. He's throwing toys at my kids right and left. He's spoiling them. Yeah. And so the protector's still there. The provider's still there, but in the security of knowing you can do all that well, you've got nothing to prove.
So I think a lot about the steps of manhood.
Yeah.
Sometimes I hear it referred to as, like in the medieval times, you start as a joker. Like you're a kid, you're a fucking joke.
I relate to that.
Yeah, and then you become a knight, and that's usually around your 20s. It's time to go, like, start fighting, but, like, you're...
Join the military.
Yeah, join the military, like, become an intern, right? Like, and you probably are there for 10 years or so. Yeah. Usually around then your 30s, it's time to now become a, what's the next one? Blanking on the term, but a prince, excuse me. Yeah. You no longer need to be on the front lines. You can start to have knights under you going out into battle, but you start to build your kingdom. But you're still in the middle. You're not a king yet. Work your way up, king. Yeah. You have children. You have princes under you who have knights under them, and now you've got the kingdom, and you'll pretty much retire on that until you pass. Or unless you're like mega, you can become an emperor, and now you've got like multiple kingdoms, not just one. Yeah. So, okay, but you can't skip a step. Yeah. Very similar, I hear it more relevant through martial arts. You're a white belt. You learn X, Y, and Z. Then you're a blue belt. Or you learn X, Y, and Z plus A, B, and C. Then you're a purple belt, and you learn X, Y, Z plus A, B, C plus 1, 2, 3. And you start to like add these different dimensions to things each time. Then you're a brown belt. Then you're a black belt. Then you're a first degree black belt. And like now you're really just getting started. So, but you can't skip a step. Yeah. So to bring it here, I'm like, I'd love to invite my grandfather energy into my life now and have more of that. This like cool, quiet confidence, or this like no insecurity, very secure. Gives a shit if I'm wearing this like ugly green windbreaker at a party because that's what grandpas do and they don't give a shit. But is it actually healthy to like emerge there over time? Don't skip the steps. Like I haven't even had a dad energy yet. How could I go to grandfather energy? Yeah. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I had to go through all those steps. I had to be the chaotic young man. I had to go, join the military, become a warrior, and prove myself. Like, I had to go through all those steps in order to reach this one now. But I don't think everybody has to spend, necessarily decades and decades and decades to get to that grandfather energy. I think if we can look to examples to people who have that positive, secure masculinity, we can start emulating that earlier and earlier in life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I typically ask this question as a closing question, but we still have a bit of time, and I'm going to ask you this now because
Sure.
I feel like we'll have a lot to get into.
Mm-hmm.
The question is, and every guest gets asked this in this show,
Okay.
what do you think it means to be a man today?
I'm going to start by talking about what I see right now when I look at masculinity today. I think masculinity in our society is in a very insecure place. Women have made so much progress over the last 100 years, and I'm very happy for that, but I think it's knocked men off balance. And I think it's confused them about what their role is. And a lot of men are reacting to that from a place of insecurity. And a lot of the messaging around masculinity is really negative. Like, I'm at a point in my life where I can just let it roll off my back. But if I'm a young boy or a teenager and all I'm hearing about is toxic masculinity and privilege and all these other things, it's hard to even take pride in being a man. Mm-hmm. And when a lot of men will speak up about their struggles and everything, they're often shut down pretty quick. Oh, you privileged white boy or whatever like that. And that idea of privilege, I get where that comes from. But that's not the experience of most young men growing up. They are not feeling privileged at all. And in a lot of ways, women are making tremendous progress. They're more likely to graduate high school, to go to college, to graduate college, to go to, advanced degrees. They're a lot less likely to wind up in prison. They're, on and on and on. And meanwhile, men were leading the way in suicide, in alcoholism, in drug abuse, and incarceration, and not getting college degrees. I don't think this is a golden era for the average man. Yes, up at the top, it is mostly men, but for the average man down below, I think it's a really challenging time, and it's a place where we don't have a lot of positive male role models. I challenge friends from time to time, tell me a really positive masculine role model today, and a lot of them are stumped by that question, and that's sad. Mm-hmm. That's sad. So what is it to be a man today? I don't want to shy away from the traditional ideals of masculinity. I do think being a man is being a leader. I think being a man is being a protector. I think man is being a secure. And I want to retain all those things. I think those are beautiful things when executed correctly. But what I would like to see is more examples and opportunities around being a full human being, around being a man who can embrace all of himself. Mm-hmm. It's a very, very challenging time, I think, for masculinity. Yeah. And because it's such a challenging time, I think there's a lot of, predators who are able to prey on these confused young men. There's a lot of talk today about the incel movement, and obviously I, reject all of the misogyny and ugliness that goes along with that. But at the same time, I actually feel some empathy for these young men. And I have friends who have, young men, late teens, early 20s, even on into their 20s, and I'm seeing a lot of men, not leaving the home, not getting a job, not getting a girlfriend, staring at their phone all day. And I'm not coming from a moralistic place, but I do think pornography is very damaging to young men. Mm-hmm. I mean, if for no other reason than if you can get your sexual satisfaction on your screen, where's your motivation to actually go learn how to talk to Sally across the hall? And then, your view of sex is getting extremely warped. I mean, what you're seeing on Pornhub is not what sex looks like in real life. And so you have this twisted idea of what sex looks like. You don't have the social skills to go talk to a woman and build an actual, real relationship with somebody. And I think it's fucking young men up really bad. And there's not a lot of voices out there that are really speaking to these young men. And the voices that are speaking to young men are doing it in really, sick ways.
And you've chosen psychedelics as a vehicle to fix this.
I'm sure there's other ways, but for me...
Oh, there's tons of ways.
That's what I needed.
Yeah.
Like, I was so locked up and, emotionally constipated. I needed something huge to break through that.
Yeah.
The more subtle paths were not working for me. I needed something huge.
So let's talk to a couple of different people here.
Sure.
Let's start by talking to the parent of a late teens boy, 17-year-old kid, for example. What do you prescribe to them? Or recommend? Me, prescription's an aggressive word.
I think it really depends on the young boy, but I will say I don't think too much coddling is actually helpful. I was a bit thrown out into the world without a lot of safety nets, and I resented that for a long time. But boy, I look back on that, and there's part of me that's really grateful about it.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you throw somebody out into the deep end, and that's kind of what they need in order to learn how to swim.
100%.
Yeah. Now, I think that should be done thoughtfully. Just don't throw them out and good luck to you. No, I think there is guidance that needs to be given.
Yeah.
I raised 2 girls, not boys, but I had a talk with my oldest daughter when she was 20, and I said, okay, here's the deal. I'm going to get you through college, and after that, you are on your own. You're not relying on, my bank account. You're not, going to be, boomeranging back into the home. Like, you need to go learn out to make your own path. And along with that, I actually put together a PowerPoint presentation of lessons that I thought she would need to know. Here's some stupid things you can do with money. Don't do this stuff. Here's some really smart ways to, invest your money and to budget and be thoughtful. So I think between this extreme of, throwing the kid out of the house at 18 and wishing them good luck and coddling them until they're in their 40s in your basement, I think there's this middle ground where we allow them to leave the nest, but also give them some tools and some resources to take with them as they go out into the world. My generation, I'm Gen X. Before we were called Gen X, we were called latchkey kids. And, I do kind of resonate with that because there was, for me, a lot of that, you're on your own, good luck. And I think my generation has kind of, swung the pendulum the other way to the helicopter parents. And what I would love to see is that pendulum to find, a nice middle ground where you're getting a little bit of both. You're getting some wisdom, some guidance, and some resources over here. And you are being given a path out of the nest. If you stay in the nest forever and don't make your own way, you're not really a full adult.
The new term I heard recently that honestly boils my blood is lawnmower parents.
Tell me about that. I don't know that.
Helicopter parents. So I was, I think, raised personally my mom tried to helicopter pretty hardcore. My dad latchkeyed pretty hardcore.
Yeah.
And they were divorced my whole childhood. So I kind of got like a taste of both. And I think I landed somewhere comfortably in the middle. So I actually really appreciate how, whether it was intentional or not from them, like I do look fondly on how I was raised in that category. Now they both have children in high school who are my half siblings, and I see a lot of helicoptering going on. Helicopter parenting is like anytime something tough lands on the kid's plate, they get rid of it for them. So the kid never really learns how to solve their own problems. Lawnmower parenting is there have been so many boundaries and protections put in place where tough things never even fall in the kid's lap at all. So helicopter parent would be like, oh my God, you fell, like let me put a Band-Aid on your knee and kiss the boo-boo and all that so you don't ever feel pain again, my perfect, precious little child. Lawnmower parent, the kid never even fell in the first place.
Yeah.
That is really dangerous. That could be, in my opinion, that could be the most destructive thing to happen to this country.
Yeah.
Is like a generation of people having never dealt with a problem.
Yeah.
Entering the world that is literally only problems.
Yeah.
Like there is nothing not a problem in this world at this point, basically. Yeah. And this is a whole generation that doesn't know how to deal with that. We're fucked. Yeah. That scares me.
Adversity is a gift.
Phenomenal gift.
It doesn't feel like it in the moment, but it is.
And it's crazy because, like, I don't know, you grow up and you're in the military. I had a rather militant dad and, you know, I'd love to do hard shit. Eventually, and it's not even that long, adversity becomes really fun.
Yeah.
Like you start to really appreciate it because you're just like, oh, like every time I do this, I get stronger and I come out better on the other side. Yeah. Give me more. I just want to keep getting stronger.
Yeah. Yeah. And then there's, you know, a lot of research around adversity and comfort right now. And too much comfort is really, really bad for us. Yeah. And, you know, going back to the idea of what, you know, young men might need today, one thing I think they need that they don't have in our culture is the rite of passage.
Yep.
And I feel extremely fortunate to have had multiple rite of passages. And the most obvious one is basic training. Like as cliched as it sounds, I do feel like I went into basic training as a boy and I left a
initiation.
Man. Yeah. So I almost feel like, I don't think the military is for everybody, but I feel like every young man should go through basic training. I think that'll be really freaking good. You know, you need to learn how to deal with, getting up at 6 a.m. in the morning and running for 3 miles, even when you don't freaking feel like it. And to have somebody, you know, yelling and screaming at you, you know, in a relatively safe setting when you don't do things right, and to learn to work with other people. I came from the San Francisco Bay Area when I went to basic training, and there was people from all over the country, mostly from people with backgrounds very dissimilar to mine. And over the course of 8 weeks or whatever it was, to learn to cooperate and communicate from people all over, you know, the country, and to work together as a unit. And, you know, as crazy as it sounds, like marching was really interesting. To have to be in sync with people, to have to like work together as a team, and if you aren't pulling your weight, you're letting other people down. Like there's some really goddamn good lessons in basic training. Totally. I would love to see some sort of healthy, I don't know, modification to basic training that was available to young men. Because what other rite of passages like do we?
Well, there's not that. So we did an episode with Philip Folsom. Shout out Philip, anthropologist. Former Marine, and he was like, the issue is men, there is no initiation anymore. Yeah, it used to be the first hunt. In some cultures, it was lifting a barn. Some cultures, Jewish culture, for example, becoming a bar mitzvah. Which is like not much because I had bar mitzvah. All I did was had to like read a couple pages and
get some gifts.
Got a sick party out of it. Yeah, but I can't think of any modern initiation in this country anymore. Women have a pretty clean one, which is getting their first period. Yeah. It's not like, I don't know, maybe not that comparable. Not sure I have a place to say about that, but I think about it constantly. Like, what could modern initiations look like? I think you see a lot in like high school sports, college sports maybe.
Which is probably a fairly small minority.
Yeah, like I don't want to be like, you have to play sports to get it. Like there's got to be other ways. I mean, look at Israel, for example, not to get political, but every Israeli citizen has to go to the military at 18. Like it's non-negotiable.
Yeah.
The rest of that can be up for a different podcast. But
and you know, women do a lot better job of taking care of each other than, frankly, men do. We're raised to be independent, which, you know, has its positive aspects, but no, we need men to heal men.
Yeah.
Like, I think looking to women to heal us is probably a mistake because they don't understand the male experience. Like, how could they? any more than I could understand the female experience. I can try to put myself in their shoes and empathize and everything, but I'm never truly going to get it.
Yeah.
And men helping men just doesn't seem to be ingrained in our culture.
Yeah.
One of the revelations actually I had after my psychedelic experience, amongst many others, it was like, oh, I want more close male friends. No, I had male friends. Certainly I had male friends in the military. I have, ex-military friends who would be there for a heartbeat, if I were to call upon them, in the middle of the day. But there was a lack of, vulnerability and intimacy in those friendships. And so I did collect, a fair number of female friends because, I could actually talk to them about real shit. They're down for that.
Yeah.
And so after the psychedelic experience, it was very conscious, like, I need more close male friends, like actually really close. And so I very deliberately would, find out circles where I could find those people. So I've, joined men's groups. I've done medicine ceremonies with all men, and I've deliberately tried to, make friends with, men who are down for this game. Kind of like, your experiment there, like. And not every guy's going to be down for that, but you can find out pretty quickly who's down for those conversations and who's not, and you can, modulate accordingly. But I think, it's up to men to heal men, and I don't see a lot of dudes doing that.
There's a quote I love, which is healed men heal men.
Yeah.
There's also healed women heal women.
Yeah.
But you don't hear healed women heal men or healed men heal women.
Yeah.
Though that could be the case, but it's not the quote.
Yeah.
So
I got kind of close to that quote in the book. I say something along the lines of, you've probably heard the phrase, hurt people hurt people.
Yeah.
It works the other way around
100%.
too. Help heal people heal people.
So next person to talk to, first was the 17-year-old parent of the 17-year-old boy.
Uh-huh.
In the context of psychedelics and like kind of how you would give advice or what you'd prescribe, what would you say to the 25-year-old guy who is broke, purposeless, directionless, borderline in that incel category? And I get a lot of these dudes falling across, sending me DMs or comments being like, I have no fucking clue what my purpose is, and I don't even know where to start, and I'm just basically just tired, and I'm pissed.
Yeah.
And you know exactly what his algorithm is feeding him.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I'm not going to pretend there's an easy answer to that, because it can be hard to undo a quarter century of training. Somebody who's been coddled for, 20 years, it can be hard to just give them that wake-up call. I think what they need is a mentor. And, in the perfect world, the father is that mentor. But I don't know that a lot of fathers have really done their own work. And so the next book I'm writing that's about masculinity and psychedelics, well, I don't think this is a book teenagers are going to be reading, right? I don't think teenagers really read much anymore, and also writing a book on psychedelics geared towards teenagers is probably a little questionable on my part. So I'm targeting the book more towards, grown men, because if we can heal our shit, then we can be the fathers or the mentors to those young men.
Yeah.
And I've been thinking too, like if this is, the next step of the mission for me, the book's probably not the right answer, because I don't know how many young men are actually reading books anymore. So I may need to think about what is the best medium to reach me.
Short form video clips on TikTok.
And I'm not a TikTok guy, so that's going to be a stretch for me. But like eventually, that may be where I need to go.
Yeah. If the solution is go to them directly versus go through the dad to the kid, or the coach or whatever it is.
Yeah, and I think for me it is actually going towards men who have grown up a little bit, and maybe they're not fathers, but they certainly have younger men in their lives. Yeah. And I think there's a need for healthy men's groups out there. I know I've been able to find them. Some of them are healthy and some of them aren't. Some of them I think could be I'll use the word a little bit toxic. So, and going back to like rite of passages. So, have you heard of Iboga?
No.
Oh, okay. So the first time I heard about iboga, this was right after my psychedelic experience. I'm off at the Esalen Institute, and I'm in line waiting for food, and I strike up conversation with the man in front of me. And very quickly he says something along the lines of this: I used to be a heroin addict, then I tried iboga, and I've never touched heroin again. So I very quickly Google, what is iboga? So iboga is this psychedelic that comes from the root bark of a West African shrub in Gabon and similar areas. And there is a spiritual tradition called the Bwiti tradition. And they have been using iboga as a rite of passage. It's a very intense, long, and not necessarily very fun psychedelic. The reason most people haven't heard of it is because it is not a recreational drug. This isn't fun. But that is the rite of passage that they use in that society. Now, in the West, it's being used, originally it's especially effective for opioid addiction and other addictions too. More recently, it's gotten a lot of attention for the treatment of PTSD and iboga. Very interestingly, former Texas Governor Rick Perry, who was in the first Trump administration, has come out as a huge advocate. He was on the Joe Rogan podcast earlier this year, and a few things he said is, I am a complete believer in plant medicine. You cannot argue with the data. This could be the most important medicine mankind's ever discovered. I am the Johnny Appleseed of iboga. And in about 10 days, I'm going down to Costa Rica to help hold space for a iboga ceremony there for military veterans. Anyway, the reason I bring that one up in particular is because there we have a tradition from another country where the psychedelic is the rite of passage. Iboga is a very, intense medicine. I don't think that's one we necessarily want to adopt, but I would go back to San Pedro. If I were to be charged with setting up a rite of passage ceremony for young men, I would choose San Pedro. And I would organize an event that has some elders who are wise, who have been through their hero's journey, who have some good grandfather energy, and bring into that ceremony some young men, and I don't know the exact right age for that, but young men who can sit and bond with the wisdom of the elders under the care of this medicine. I think it would be incredibly powerful. I went to a San Pedro ceremony once, and not by design, but by coincidence, it wound up being all men. And that was a really unique and healing experience. And I thought as I was there, if there was one woman, even one woman in this ceremony, the entire dynamic would be different. And if she was pretty, it would be even worse. And so how powerful that was for men to gather, under the influence of this really powerful ancient medicine. And yeah, I can't help but wonder if that could be something that could be introduced. That was something that indigenous people would use in their ceremonies. And I think it could be, a real gift to this world if there was some way to incorporate that.
Yeah. I'm curious, mentally, what have you been just gnawing on recently?
I think it would be actually probably this topic. My brain has been in the background working on that next book about psychedelics and masculinity, and that is kind of what I keep coming back to. The concepts that are going to be included in there, and some wrestling around, what's the right medium and what's the right demographic. I don't have all the answers yet because it's too fresh of an idea, but this book, as short as it is, took me almost 5 years to write. The first version was 320 pages, and then I decided to start over from scratch. And, the more I wrote it, the shorter it got. So I don't know. I think this next one could happen a lot quicker because I feel like I've kind of found my voice and I've kind of solved the puzzle of how to write a book. But that is the main thing that I have been noodling on lately. Another thing that has come up is trying to solve, and this is for me personally, trying to solve this riddle of the healthy romantic relationship. I realize, looking back on a lot of my romantic relationships, I have not shown up well. I need to learn to love well. And I actually put myself on probation this last year. For a year now, I have not been in any kind of serious, committed romantic relationship, very deliberately, because I am sick and tired of hurting women by accident. Not that I want to hurt them on purpose, but you know what I mean? I don't want my issues or insecurities or patterns to like hurt anybody else. And so it's been like this year-long journey of like fixing all of this so that I can go out there and love very well. Yeah. Those are my two recent noodles.
Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm psyched for you.
Yeah,
this is good stuff.
Me too.
If you could leave one word or one statement for a man, what would it be?
I would say that the most courageous thing you can do is to go inside and accept all aspects of yourself. I think that's brave. I think it's courageous. I think it's manly. I think the men who are in denial of their feelings are cowards. And it's time for us to stop being cowards. And it's time for us to be full human beings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, man.
Thank you,
awesome.
brother.
That's a good note to end on.